I'm gonna make some ginger tea because I'm halfway through filming and my throat's getting a bit scratchy. Let me move this pot so we can... So, I guess of all the spices in the Indian householder kitchen, the most, I guess the ones that come straight from the medicine cabinet, as it were, would be fresh ginger and turmeric powder. Allspice has medicinal capacity, and with masala, that's really what we're working to, is that idea of holistic consumption all the time. Not just food, but the way we think, what we do, everything that we consume. That being said, ginger is one of the spices of the householder's medicine cabinet. So it has a lot of benefits around the respiratory system, classically in terms of when we're talking about Ayurvedic practice. Domestic Ayurveda is the Ayurveda that's given to us in bits and pieces throughout our childhood. Domestic Ayurveda focuses on the information that's related sort of in an oral storytelling tradition when you're a kid growing up and you're told, don't eat bananas when you've got a cough because they'll create phlegm, or don't eat too many mangoes, you'll get diarrhea, or in summer they're too heating for your body systems, or if you've been unwell, you can only have khichdi for dinner because it's soft and it's good for your digestion. Or, I mean, there's so many, it goes on and on and on. But ginger is, salt water gargles when you had a sore throat because of the antiseptic quality of salt water. I used to hate that. My much preferred ginger tea, so that's what we're gonna do now. So with ginger tea, really what you're doing is you're playing into the capacity for fresh ginger to its antiseptic qualities in terms of any sort of sore throat. It's considered to be pungent and heating in terms of Ayurveda, so rasa, the Ayurvedic taste. Pungent has great quality to lift tired systems, and that sort of heating, warming quality. Similarly, when you have a cold, it's considered a way to rise the body up out of the sort of physiological slump that a cold entails. This is just such domestic language, but you can see where I'm going. It's kind of how we speak. Now, for about 1.5 cups of water, you don't drink full cups of it because it's quite strong. What we're doing is I'm essentially putting in, almost, so if you have a look in the pan, Trav, you can see how much ginger is in there as opposed to water. Like, it's a really high ratio. I don't take the skin off, I don't think you need to. And then what we're going to do is put this on a low simmer on the stove. First is I'll bring it up to heat. I'll do one more. Up to the boil, then I'll put the lid on and put it on a low simmer for anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes until the colour of the liquid becomes quite golden and the viscosity of the water changes to become a little thicker, a little more syrupy. I put the lid on once it's simmering just to help prevent too much evaporation, because otherwise what happens is you put the water on, you put the ginger in, and at the end of it you get left with the tiny thimbleful. You have to do the whole thing again. So over here, move this, and then just choose a jet that's not too excessive. So like I said, I'm going to bring that to the boil and then let it simmer. While we're doing that, I can chat to you about ginger if you like, or about really the idea of what domestic Ayurvedic practice, that sort of kitchen as medicine cabinet entails. Really what we're looking at doing is attempting to restore equilibrium in the body via nourishment and consumption. It's not so much about you killing the cold as it is raising the body's ability to provide its own immune response to that cold. And so things like, ginger, warming masala, foods that are inherently nourishing but quite digestible, that have a certain gentle kind of a density. So things like rice, soft dals, masalas that have a lot of, maybe turmeric powder, ginger powder, cumin seed, familiar flavors that can be received by the body without too much challenge, without too much cacophony or noise or stimulation. A body that has a cold is a body that's tired. Essentially, that's what we're saying. And so we're working to nourish our systems in order to provide ourselves the strength to find wellness again. So it's a really gentle way to approach what you would consider to be minor conditions. Obviously, for real health problems, seek real medical advice. And then part of the practice of the householder, so the householder being the idea of that person in the home who sets the tone for love and for communication and for family togetherness and structure and the ways in which we understand who we are in our family, is building into the children from a young age the handles that we use to climb ourselves up out of illness. So what I mean by that is ginger honey water is something that we introduce to our children young, and we use it throughout their whole childhood. It creates connection, and it creates a language between the child and the aromatic, so that when it comes to consumption of that aromatic, there's actually like a framework for communication. So we know what the ginger tastes like, we know what it does, we know the feeling of love that comes from being presented with that cup by our parents or by our caregivers. And then when we go to make that for ourselves later, or for our own children later when we become householders ourselves, that information is actually messaged through the food, and that's where comfort comes from. And comfort plays an enormous part in healing when it comes to those kind of just day-to-day domestic, the illnesses you wouldn't go to a doctor for. So it's a nice way to think about flavour as being part of a tradition of caregiving as well, not just as applying a medical overlay to food, but actually having the DNA or the imprint of care in the foundation of that dish as well. I don't know if that makes sense. It makes sense to me in my head. I'll see when I come to the edit. It might not make sense to you on the other side of the camera. But you can see, so it's getting a little bubble. So just like that, just a gentle simmer, and then we'll come back in a few minutes. All right, so come and have a look. Ready for the reveal? Oh, it's getting there. See how the color's changing? The texture of the ginger's changing. The quality of the water itself, so the texture of the water, its viscosity is changing. Heat's a remarkable thing. It really does transmute produce, dish, aroma. No wonder discovery of fire was a big deal. Thanks, Prometheus. You know the Greek myths?
Not well, but
We've got Rick Riordan to thank for that. Prometheus was the Greek god who gave fire to humans and then was banished from Mount Olympus. and basically submitted to a lifetime of torture. Yeah. So.
Cheers for the fire. Sorry about the torture.
Yeah.
Shitty trade-off.
Yeah. They weren't exactly a generous, compassionate bunch, by all accounts. You ready? That's pretty nice. You actually can keep simmering longer than this until it gets quite rich and dark, but just for the sake of efficacy of editing and all those things, we're going to leave it here, but have a little look. Obviously, the longer you leave it, the richer it becomes. But see how the water's even moving differently now because it's heavier? Ginger's quite sticky. It becomes slightly syrup-like. I don't need that. Okay. Just like a little bit. And then a little bit of honey. So this is from friends who live nearby. In Rosabrook, if that means anything to you. But yeah, it's honey from their bees. So bush honey, smells amazing. So just honey to taste. Now, one thing about ginger honey tea is that when you have the first sip, if it's too hot, it will give you the hiccups. It happens to me every single time, and I end up with the hiccups. So I'm gonna wait for it to cool a little bit. If you want, you can put a little bit of lemon or lime in it. I'm gonna put a bit of lime. And it just brightens and actually sweetens a little bit the tea because the contrast of acidity highlights that sort of syrupy sweet quality in the ginger and then obviously in the honey. You could put a little bit of salt in there as well. You know, just because why not? Oh, it smells so good. Yum. It's spicy and the lime's really beautiful and fresh, and the ginger is just really warm, like as soon as it hits your chest. Like if you were an adult and you wanted to hot toddy it, like put some warm whiskey in there, it'd be pretty exceptional. But just any kind of head cold, any sort of tired, any voice issue, like talking to a camera all day. Yeah, this is beautiful. Ginger honey tea, the remedy of remedies. Medicine cabinet right in your kitchen. Delish.